Hello everybody, welcome back to Dissociadid. We have a legal update for you today. If you don't know what the legal case between us, Dissociadid and Sergio Costa is about, please go watch our video called What Happened to Dissociadid, Our Videos, as that goes over essentially what this case is about. If you want to follow it through from the beginning to where we're at now, there are lots of legal updates on the channel that you can check out. Following the judgment on the 16th of January 2023, when Costa's applications for cost orders against his own lawyers were dismissed, he has now filed applications to appeal for every decision that went against him. This means that in total, he has now filed 4 live appeals. They range from accusing the judge of misunderstanding basic legal principles, to claiming that he was not given a fair hearing despite many written rounds of submission and multiple court appearances. That means that this matter is now being considered by the Court of Appeal. You can keep up to date with what's going on with that if you want to by the Court of Appeal's tracker. That is at casetracker.justice.gov.uk. And from there you can type in Dissociadid. We've had to raise the target amount of our fundraiser to £200,000. And that's just to try and cover the legal costs of fighting these appeals. We're not asking for an additional £200,000, we've just raised what the target was to £200,000. Now don't panic, we do go into detail about why we need these specific costs and where that money will go. If you're not already aware, we do fundraise through Crowd Justice, which is a legal fundraising platform that only exists to fund legal cases. They work directly with lawyers, so none of the money comes to us, it goes straight to the lawyers. We don't see or handle any of it, and it can only be used for legal cases. Costa has fired his lawyers, and his application against his own barrister was dismissed by the court. So it seems to us that he's undertaking this himself now. If he does have help from anyone, then it's not on the record and is unofficial, so there's nobody representing him. So what's the fundraiser being spent on currently? Unfortunately, all the money raised by the fundraiser so far has been exhausted. And after that happened, in the last few months, we've been paying whatever we can out of our own limited funds to try and get this through to the end. We did this instead of raising the fundraising target because you guys have already given us so much support and so much help. And we really thought that it was going to be over by the end of February. That was our hope. Before, obviously, Sergio Costa sent all these appeals through. So we were trying to handle the rest of it ourselves. Unfortunately, that's no longer an option. Because Costa has once again extended the litigation with his appeals and therefore raised the costs, we've now run out of personal funds and had to increase the target goal of the fundraiser to try and cover the amount that we need. Generally speaking, these costs have been massively inflated by Costa's approach to the litigation. This includes fighting every single point to the very end, including the points that most lawyers would look at and dismiss as being completely hopeless, causing additional submissions and now appealing against every decision. The reality is that on top of these already massive costs, there are potentially big bills coming in the future, which we'll go into detail in a minute. Can the appeals be thrown out before going to court? Why are we involved? The appeals are currently in the permission stage. That means that Costa requires permission from the Court of Appeal to actually be able to appeal. As part of that, our lawyers have submitted written submissions on why Costa should not be allowed to appeal. This will now be decided on paper, so there'll be no in-person hearing, and these submissions are extremely important and obviously not to mention costly. If Costa does obtain permission, there will be an appeal hearing. If that happens, we'll have to decide what to do. Instructing a barrister to represent us would likely be a much better decision rather than leaving things to be fought out without our say and our input and our testimony. The costs of that, though, would be very high. And again, we go into detail more about that later in the video. Of course, we're hoping that it won't even come to that. So, what are the estimated costs going forward? The best case scenario is that Costa doesn't get permission to appeal. If that's the case, then we go straight to the quantum or money stage of the original IP proceedings. The costs for the entire quantum stage of the proceedings would be between 30,000 Great British pounds and 50,000 Great British pounds plus VAT, which is a tax in England, at 20%. That cost might be higher if Costa continues as he currently is. And remember, this is if he doesn't get permission to appeal. That stage will take between 6 to 8 months, and there would be a short trial. That is our best case scenario. On the other hand, If Costa does get permission to appeal, there will be an appeal hearing. If we were to instruct a barrister to represent us at the hearing and play a full part in defending us for the appeal, those costs are likely to be in the region of 15,000 and 20,000 Great British pounds plus the 20% VAT on top. Now, if that appeal were to fail, we still then go to the quantum stage again. That's what we mentioned before. So then that would be another between 30,000 and 50,000 pounds plus VAT, and the cost that we just mentioned for the appeal costs, which adds another 20,000 plus VAT. And that's if he gets permission to appeal but loses. However, worst case scenario, if Mr. Costa gets permission to appeal and the appeal succeeds, he will likely recover his legal costs from us, if any. The matter would then be remitted or sent back to the IPEC court for further orders. And it's completely impossible to estimate the costs of that because it is entirely dependent on the outcome of the appeal. We do know at the very minimum, though, that we would be paying a barrister to support us through that appeal, so the barrister's cost, that's a definite cost. And then after that, an unknown cost and potentially having to pay Sergio's fees. We found out what lawyers he was using last time. He's been using lawyers that are considerably more expensive than ours. Now, of course, if you look at the costs that we've just gone over, we haven't asked for anywhere near that amount of money in how much we've raised the fundraiser target. We haven't accounted for even close. Anything that you have to share would be so helpful and so greatly appreciated by us. It is also worth noting that alongside his extreme escalation on the costs, Costa has refused to pay us the £10,000 that the court ordered him to pay us because of his inappropriate behaviour at court. The court ordered him to pay us that amount for his unreasonable conduct, but he's added that order to his current list of appeals. I'm so sorry that we don't have a happier update for you. I know that you guys want this to be over as much as we do. We're still determined and we're still fighting and we're not going to stop. We are completely determined to see these appeals thrown out and have this nightmare over for good. It will end. We just have to get it to a point where there is nothing else that he can fight. So please, please, please share our fundraiser. Donate if you have anything to spare. Talk about it with your friends. Interact with this video. Comment, like, subscribe, anything to get this video seen. And please share the crowdfunder as far and wide as you can. It is www.crowdjustice.com/case/Dissociadid. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you're kept up to date with this and everything else that's going on in our lives. We are making a slow but steady return alongside all this mess. We actually have some really interesting videos coming that I think you're gonna really enjoy. It's the kind of stuff that people don't really talk about, or we haven't seen other creators with the ID talking about. Some interesting questions that we're gonna be going into detail on. Thank you so much for your support. We're so glad to have you with us, and we need you with us. We refuse to let him win. We refuse to let him steal our life from us anymore. He's had too much of our time. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.